Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm taking a look at Ugly Gryphon Inn, the second in a simply solo line of games from Button Shy Games and designer Scott Almes. This game is currently up on Kickstarter, so I thought it would be a good idea for me to do a playthrough of this game so you can get an idea of how the game plays through, and then I'll give you a little bit of my thoughts on the game and how I feel about the game itself. So let's head down to the table to check out the playthrough, and then I'll meet you back up here to tell you what I think about the game. Before we begin, it's worth mentioning that the cards that I'll be using in this playthrough video are a print and play copy of the game, so the back of this card is not representative of the final copy of the game. This is just a playing card that I've used to add some stiffness to the card. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper in a sleeve. I do apologize for any glare or reflection we get from the sleeves, but hopefully that won't be too much of an issue. In addition, while the art and game is mostly finalized, there are some small possible errors in some of the text. In one specific case, I've actually gone ahead and corrected the text. And there are some other small things like some of the arrows on the cards might not be printed yet, but it won't affect how the game plays. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the playthrough. Before we do that though, we should set up the game. And to set up the game, all we're going to do is we're going to take the cards and shuffle them. And then we will lay out 4 cards as our sort of starting set of cards. Now I do apologize that the cards are a little bit far away this time, but that's because this game is going to have a lot of verticality to it, so I want to make sure we have enough space for the cards to fit in. I will be reading everything that I show you, and if I feel like I need to, I might hold things up to the camera so you can see them better. So basically these 4 cards are going to be the bar at the Ugly Gryphon Inn. And the game is very simple. It's basically got 2 steps that's going to play out each turn. One of the characters in the bar is going to move into the inn to go to bed at night. And then after one character goes to the inn, we will check all of the characters in the inn to see if they're irked by something that's either going on in the bar or something that's going on into the inn, and it might cause them to leave the inn. After we've moved the character into the inn and we've checked all of those conditions, we will then draw 1 card from the deck and add 1 more person into the bar. And then after we've added someone into the bar, we're then going to check the symbols at the bottom. And if we have any of the symbols shown 3 or more times, means this stinky smell, this fighting, or this loud noise. If we have more than 3 of them showing at any point when we add a card to the bar, we will then also check the symbols on the cards in the inn to see if that condition triggers any of the effects on the cards. So that's basically all there is to the game. We're going to keep adding 1 to the inn, 1 to the bar, 1 to the inn, 1 to the bar until this deck is completely gone. And after that, if there are 7 or more characters in the inn, we have successfully won the game. If at any point more than 7, means 8 or more characters have left the inn, then we instantly lose the game. So with all that being said, I hope that makes some sense, and the game will become more clear as we play through. So let's go ahead and get into the playthrough and you'll see how everything works as we play. Now before we start, I will explain the 4 cards that I've been dealt in the bar to begin with, just to give you an idea of what's going on. So the first card we've got is the Charitable Giant. And the Charitable Giant says, if there is a grouping of 3 or more food or beer in the inn, then the giant leaves, but he gives his stipend to another patron at the bar. So we would move another patron from the bar to the top of the inn, and then we would start checking the rooms again from the top. Also at the bottom, he's got a beer, and he's got this sort of smelly icon, which will, again, create those triggers as we move forward in the game. Next, we've got the Sensitive Hunter, who is beer and fighting. And then it says, if there's more food than beer at the inn, he will leave, and as he leaves, it leaves its rotten stag carcass behind, and all patrons in the inn that are irked by smells will leave the bar. And his second trigger is fighting. So if he's already in the inn, and somebody comes to the inn, and we trigger 3 or more of those fighting symbols, he's going to trigger this effect as well. So again, this first effect is what triggers if it happens when he's placed into the inn, or when someone else is placed into the inn. And this second trigger is what happens when we add somebody to the bar. We will check this second condition. Goblin Triplet says, if there are 3 goblins in the inn, they will automatically leave. So we can never have 3 goblins in the inn. And then if more than 3 fighting symbols are in the bar, when somebody is added to the bar, the goblin will also leave. And in this case, the goblin reminds his brothers of a childhood brawl. the old brawl starts again and all the goblins leave. So the goblins, there are 3 of them in the game, and anytime one of them leaves the inn, any other goblins in the inn will always leave with them. So they've got double symbols here, which means they're dangerous to leave at the bar. But if we put too many of them in the inn, then they're also going to be dangerous there because they're going to cause each other to leave if one of them leaves. And finally, here's a second goblin. We started with 2 of them this time. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the second goblin, same idea, except now this time they're triggered by smell instead of fighting, and they have 2 fights and a food at the bottom of the card. All right, so the first thing I need to do is I need to add one of these characters to the inn. I don't mind adding a single goblin to the inn. The hunter is fine to go in first because it says if there's more food than beer. If he goes in, the only thing in the inn is beer, which is not going to be a problem for him. And the charitable giant says if there's a grouping of 3 or more food or beer in the inn, then he will leave. In which case, at the beginning, there's nothing there, so there would only be 1 beer if he went in also. So all of these right now are safe to put into the inn. And I see right now that fighting is already being triggered. So I can't... it's dangerous to put the hunter in because we've already got 2 fighting. I can't put this goblin in because we've already got 3 fighting. So he'll be kicked out of the inn pretty quickly. The charitable giant is good because he doesn't have a secondary trigger. So he only leaves if there's ever 3 or more food or beer in a row in the inn. So let's go ahead and start with him and we'll see what happens from there. So he goes to the inn. And again, there's not a grouping of 3 or more food or beer at the inn, so we don't trigger his condition. And then we add another character to the bar. In this case, we're adding the Rusty Ranger. Now, the Rusty Ranger has a sword, so we now have 4 swords showing. If there was somebody in the inn that had a sword as one of their triggers, they would trigger whatever it says at the bottom of the card, but for right now, there isn't that. So we need to then move on and add 1 more person to the inn. The sensitive hunter doesn't like a lot of food in the inn. He wants more beer than food. The goblins, again, are generally safe. The sensitive hunter can't go in there now because he's triggered by fighting, and there's already 3 fighting, so that would be a problem. Even if I get rid of this goblin, there's 2 fighting. But there's no smell left in the inn. So that would be safe. Let's add this goblin to the inn. If we do that, we're down to only 2 fighting symbols. And there's no stench or no smell, so this goblin's not going to be triggered anytime soon. And his only other trigger right now is if there are 3 goblins in the inn. And he's the only one there right now, so it's not going to happen that way. All right, so that's a safe move. And he doesn't have a second trigger. So we're good for now. Yes, all right, so then we draw, hold on. Every time we add to the inn, we should read from the top down. So I just want to do this step by step to make sure you're understanding how this works, and also I don't forget anything along the way. So if there are 3 goblins in the inn, he's triggered. There aren't, so we're good. If there's a grouping of 3 or more food or beer at the inn, he's going to have a problem. But right now we have 1 beer and 1 food, so that's great because that's already breaking up the possibility of a grouping of beer. So we're good for that. So we add someone to the bar. And we trigger noise. So we've got 3 noise symbols, but nobody's triggered by noise, so we're okay for now. So we need to add someone else to the inn. I don't want to add another goblin if I don't have to. And nobody's triggered by noise, so I don't really care about that. Now, if I put the Rusty Ranger in there, then I'd be worried about that. And I can't do that now because there's already 3, so that would be an instant problem. Let's see. The hunter says if there's more food than beer at the inn, if I put him there, there's going to be 2 beer and 1 food, and that's not a problem at all. The bunny also says if there's more beer than food at the inn, and if I put him there, that's not a problem because then there's 2 food and 1 beer. Both of them is going to be an issue. He's smell. He's fighting. And I know already that I've got the double fighting here, so I will say that this one is probably safer for me to add to the inn. So I'm going to put the hunter in the inn. All right, so if there's more food than beer at the inn, there's not. We've got 2 beer and 1 food, no trigger. Goblin, if there are 3 goblins in the inn, there are not, no trigger. If there's a grouping of 3 or more food or beer at the inn, we've got beer, food, beer, which is great because it's preventing those groupings, no trigger. So we bring another character into the bar, and we've got more noise. Again, nobody here yet is triggered by noise, so we're perfectly fine for now. Then, what are we going to do next? The teetotal nun that I just added says if there's beer above or below this room, they're triggered. So I can't put her here because there's beer already. So she can't go into the inn at all yet. If I place the bunny prince, then beer and food are balanced, which is not a problem. But then we need to make sure that they're always balanced, and that's not possible because he's got more food than beer, and this is more beer than food. So whatever I add next is going to trigger one of them, and that's not good. So I want to make sure that the bunny stays at the bar. Then, what are we going to do? I can't put the bunny. I can't put the nun. Let's see. The ranger says if there's 3 or more beer at the bar. If I move the ranger, everything is food, and that's safe. If I add the ranger, that's more beer, which he likes. And that's beer in a row, so the next one would have to be food, but that's okay. We can figure that out. All right, so let's do that. The ranger goes here. There is not 3 or more beer at the bar. In fact, there's no beer at the bar, so that's fine. If there is more food than beer at the inn, there's not. There's more beer than food. Good. Only 1 goblin, no trigger. And the charitable giant, if there's a grouping of 3 or more food or beer, we've got a grouping of 2 beer, so we need to be careful next round. Then we add, hold on a minute. That's a mistake right away. That's a mistake right away because they are triggered by noise, and there's already a ton of noise on the board, so I'm not going to do that. Actually, you know what? This might be a good idea. I am going to do that, and you'll see exactly why. The Rusty Ranger does not leave the bar. The Rusty Ranger's trigger is that they're going to open the window and attempt to do trick shots, and it's irking the patron 2 rooms below, which is the goblin. And if the goblin leaves, he leaves and takes all of the other goblins with him. But there are no other goblins, so that would mean I'm removing 1 goblin from the game. It's not going to hurt to remove 1 card from the game. And if I'm removing a goblin, that means the other 2 goblins are safe in the inn. And I don't have this double sword in the game. So that's not a bad idea. So let's do that. So we turn a new card into the bar. We've got 4 noise, which clearly irks the ranger, but the ranger doesn't leave. They just shoot out the window and irk this person 2 below, or this character 2 below. So this goblin's going to leave the inn. I'll put them over here so you can see that they're gone. These slide down. So now if the ranger gets irked again, they're going to irk the giant, and that's going to be a different problem. So we're going to have to pay attention to that this round, which means I'm going to have to, 100% must, add this goblin here and pray that the next card is not a noise. Yes, so there are not 3 goblins. There is not 3 beer at the bar. If there's more food than beer, right now we have 3 beer and 1 food, that's fine. But now we have a problem anyway. That was a mistake, but I live with it. The charitable giant says if there's a group of 3 or more food or beer at the inn, now we've got a group of 3 beer because that goblin left. So now he is going to leave. The giant leaves but gives his stipend to another patron at the bar. Move another patron from the bar to the top of the inn and then start checking again from the top. All right. So we get to add, or not get to, we have to add 1 more. And we can't have more food than beer, but that's fine. We have 2 beer, so that's enough. Nothing else is going to cause a problem. So we get to add 1 more thing for free. I still don't want the bunny prince there if the sensitive hunter is there. The teetotal nun could get added now because she doesn't want beer above or below, and that's food, so that's safe. And she's a noise, so I would be killing the noise. I like that. All right, so if there's beer above or below this room, she's triggered. There's not. 3 goblins, there's not. 3 or more beer at the bar, there's not. And more food than beer here, it's tied, so we're good. The next one must be beer. And now we draw up to 4 cards in the bar. 1 and 2. And now we're going to have a problem. A big problem. Either this sensitive hunter is going to be sad and leave. And if it leaves, everything that's triggered by smells leaves, but nothing here is triggered by smells, so that wouldn't be huge. The only other way I can save that hunter is if I add the dwarf. And the dwarf says if there's more than 3 food at the inn, he leaves drunkenly, goes out the window instead of the door, and lands on a patron waiting outside. Discard the top card of the draw deck from the game. So right now, if I put him here, that's safe because there are only 2 food. But that means for the rest of the game, I can't add beer or he's going to eliminate himself and something else. And I don't like that. So I'm going to take out this hunter intentionally because he's not going to do any other collateral damage. And we've only got 2 cards discarded so far. So I will put the bunny prince. No. We got a lot of stink and he don't like stink. Then I will put, what else we got? Noise is not really a problem. Those are both noise triggers. And I don't have any other stink related things there. So I'm going to actually put this goblin and pray that we don't lose one of them because then we lose both of them. And now we start at the top. If there are 3 goblins at the end, there's not. If there's beer above or below this, there's not. So I couldn't have put the dwarf anyway because she would have left. Goblin. If there's 3 goblins at the end, there's not. If there's 3 or more beer at the bar, there's not. There's only 1. And if there's more food than beer at the inn, now we've got 3 food and 2 beer. So the sensitive hunter leaves, but nobody's triggered by smells, so that's okay with me. And they come back down like this. And we draw 1 more to fill in. And I should be okay, because all the goblins are out and nothing else is double. Okay, we got a fasting monk. If there's food above or below this room, he will leave. And he's triggered by smells. Now there is food here, so I can't play the monk. The bunny prince is happy with lots of food and afraid of smells. We only have 1 smell, so that's not a problem. The sleepy summoner, though, says if there's a noise directly above or below, there's no noise here, so she could go there. And we've got some people who are sensitive to noise, and we've already got 2 new noise growing. So I want to make sure I get rid of the noise, actually. So the bunny prince is going to go there, which means next time the summoner cannot go there because she's triggered instantly by that noise that the bunny prince has. But that's fine for now. Is there more beer than food at the end? There's not. There's a lot more food than beer. We're good. 3 goblins? No. Beer above or below this room? No. 3 goblins? No. 3 or more beer at the bar? Just 1. We're good. We add 1 more. Okay. So we added the lazy sorcerer that says if the sorcerer is on the 5th floor or higher, she leaves. If the sorcerer leaves, but to make its exit easier, it switches places with the patron at the bottom of the inn. Place that patron in the sorcerer's place. Continue checking the new room with the newly placed patron. So basically, if I put them here, then they will leave and the Rusty Ranger will come here. And the Rusty Ranger here is potentially then going to irk the goblin, which then both of them will leave. And that's a problem. That's a real big problem. All right, all of my options here are bad options. However, I do have double stink, which could be an issue as well. If I place the summoner, they will leave instantly. If I place the sorcerer, they will leave instantly because they'll be on the 5th floor or higher. If I place the monk, he will leave instantly. But the monk leaves quietly. Nothing happens. So of all of the things, this is the worst, the least risk. So I'm going to add the monk. If there's food above or below, he leaves. There is food below, so he's going to leave quietly. Nothing else happens. Bunny prince, if there's more beer than food, there's not. If there are 3 goblins at the inn, no. If there's beer above or below this room, no. If there are 3 goblins at the inn, no. If there's 3 or more beer at the bar, there's not. But even if there is 3 or more beer at the bar for the Rusty Ranger, the Rusty Ranger doesn't leave. They just shoot their bow and arrow and irk someone below them, and there's no one below the Rusty Ranger right now. So that's safe anyway. So let's keep them there. We add 1 more to the bar. And now we've got 2 swords and 2 smell. And I'm worried mostly about the swords because if this goblin leaves, and she'd also leave from the swords, and I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I lose 4 more people, I lose the game, and I don't like that. So I definitely am worried about swords. And the Bloody Barbarian is okay. I don't mind adding more food. Yes, okay. Bloody Barbarian says if there's no beer at the bar, he will leave. And as he leaves, he runs up and down the hall swinging his axe. All patrons irked by fighting leave. So if he ever leaves, I'm in serious trouble. But I don't plan on ever losing the Drunken Dwarf from the bar. So we should be good. Hold on one second. Looking at the discard pile, we could be potentially in danger. There is a card that's going to shuffle all of the bar cards back into the deck. And if he's out when that happens, there will be no beer. No, but that's fine. That only triggers when people are placed. So we're good. Okay, so we'll put him there. It says if there's no beer at the bar, there is beer at the bar, so we're safe. If there's more beer than food, we added food more, so that's fine. 3 or more goblins, there's not. If there's beer above or below this room, there's not. 3 or more goblins, sorry, not more. 3 goblins, there's not. Can't be because it's in here. And if there's 3 or more beer in the bar, and there's only 1. All right, so I do see that this is going off the screen now. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to slide this over here. No, let's put it on the other side. I'm going to slide this here, and we'll say that this is up on top, but that way you can see everything on the screen. It doesn't go off the screen. All right, so then we add to the inn. The worst that could happen is smell, and the prince will leave, and yeah, we could be dead. Oh, there's the smell. All right, so we've got 3 smells, unfortunately, which means the bunny prince leaves, and as it leaves, it hops around madly. All patrons in the inn irked by noise leave. So the bunny leaves, and now the goblin is irked by noise, so the goblin leaves. And the goblin says it reminds his brothers of a childhood brawl. The old brawl starts again, and all the goblins leave. So this goblin also leaves. And remember, all these irked by noise are going to be irked. The ranger is doing fine. There's no one below it. But now, in our discard pile, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 7. As long as we can manage not to add another card to this pile, we could still win the game. So let's see what happens. We need to add someone to the inn. What do we have now? There's 3 or more beer at the bar. There's only 2. If there's beer above or below, well, guess what? That's an issue. And there's nothing that I can do about that. No, there's no way for me to replace this nun. So anyway, we're going to have to lose right now. I'll choose Distress Satyr just because it's new. If there is no drink at the inn or no beer at the inn, this was that mistake that I mentioned earlier. It said food, but it should be beer. If there's no beer in the inn, the satyr needs a drink, move the satyr back to the bar. Well, there is beer, so we'll place him. So he's fine. If there's no beer at the bar, well, there is beer at the bar. But now we have a problem here. If there's beer above or below this room, and there is beer below this room because those other ones left. So now the nun leaves. She silently judges every other person on the way out, but there's no further effect. No further effect in this case, unfortunately, doesn't matter because now we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that, unfortunately, is the end of the game. We have lost this playthrough. All right, so usually after I do a playthrough, I talk a little bit about the components. I can't really do that here because this is just a preview copy for the Kickstarter campaign that's currently running. So I don't have finalized components. I can, though, quickly just take a look at the art on these cards. I do really like the way that this is designed. The symbols are very clear, very easy to read. The artwork on these cards, I really love the characters. It's sort of a whimsical fantasy world, and it has to be with characters at the bar, and the theme of this game is very much a whimsical kind of theme. So I think the artwork in this case, I'll show you a couple more characters. I think the artwork in this case fits perfectly, and I really, really, really like the art style on this game. Again, everything is very clear, very easy to understand. But again, I can't comment beyond that because nothing here is final copy. I don't have a copy of the wallet. So there's a lot yet to come, but for now I can say the artwork is very, very nice. So meet me back up top and I'll tell you a little bit about how I feel about this game. Welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the playthrough. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to win this time, but I never said I was good at these games, only that I really enjoy them. And guess what? I really enjoyed this one as well. Scott Almes and Button Shy do it again. I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing come out of this new Simply Solo line. If you haven't seen it already, the first game in this line was Food Chain Island, and I did a preview of that one while it was up on Kickstarter as well. So if you want to click the link above, you can go and check out that preview. And I promise I'll also be back with a full review of that game as soon as I get my hands on the Tough Skies expansion. And I'll post a link right here as well when that comes out. With all that being said, let's talk about exactly why it is that I enjoy this game. And the first thing that catches me about this game is the artwork, which we've already talked about, and the theme. The theme of this one is just a whole lot of fun. It's not a theme you've really seen before. There's lots of fantasy themes out there, but the idea of sort of running an inn, managing the patrons at the bar, keeping them at a level that they're not annoying the people that you've got sleeping upstairs in the inn, managing the inn in such a way that nobody in the inn is causing problems for the other people at the inn and scaring everybody out the door, and making sure that you've got as full a house as you possibly can at all times. And it's a really cool theme, and each of the cards is very well thematically created, that not only does each character have something that irks them, and it's a very specific thing that irks them, they've also got this sort of story about what they do when it happens. It's not just, it's noisy, I'm leaving, or it stinks, I'm going home. But like the dwarf jumps out the window and lands on someone else, which causes them to obviously not come into the inn. Or the ranger shoots arrows out the window and it annoys someone 2 floors below them. And these things are really, really, really cool. And I love to see this come out in the theme. So like, this theme is a lot of fun, and it really makes the game shine because there's a story playing out as you're playing the game. But theme and artwork is not enough to carry a game on its own, so let's talk about the mechanisms of this game. And I'm going to come straight out and say this. I actually played a prototype of this game a while back, and it didn't immediately catch my attention. Granted, it was an early prototype, there was no real artwork, and things were still a little bit rough, but the game itself didn't instantly pull me in. But let me say this, now that I've played this basically final version of this game, and I've played it again and again and again, this is something that every time I play the game, I enjoy it more. And that's because the more I understand this game, the more I understand how this game works, the more I can start to see the strategy and the tactics and the thinking that I need to do to not solve the game, but to make the game work the way it's supposed to work. And the more I get this internalized in my head, the more I can focus on the theme and the story, and all of that starts coming out more and more as I play the game. There's some really cool thought going on in here, because you have to think about who's at the bar, what are they doing at the bar, and then who are those people in the inn and how are they reacting to both the people in the bar and the people in the inn. And you saw in my playthrough, there were a couple of times when I couldn't take something because something in the inn would react badly, or I couldn't add something to the bar, right? I had to be careful about adding something to the bar because that was going to irk someone. And so it's not just thinking about one thing at a time. It's not just thinking about 2 things at a time, because I have to think about some of the patrons in the inn are irked by other patrons in the inn. Some of the patrons in the inn are irked by things that are happening at the bar. Some of the patrons in the inn might be irked by somebody who comes into the bar loudly or starts a fight, or it's all of these different layers acting at the same time. And also now, the more that I play, the more I realize it's not just about risk management, but it's also about taking the hits when you need to take the hits so that you don't take bigger hits later. And unfortunately, it didn't work out in this playthrough, but you saw that a couple times that I allowed somebody to leave because I knew if they left, only one person would leave. But if I didn't make them leave, later on, it was going to be a cascading effect where more than one person was going to leave. And that was going to be troublesome. So there's this whole thought about who do I protect? How do I protect? Who do I add to the inn? Who do I hold at the bar for good reason? Who do I mean, there's just all this stuff going on, and it just adds to the game. It adds to the flavor. It's not an easy game. It's very much not an easy game, and I showed you that with my loss today. But it's fun, and it's fulfilling when you do well. And my biggest scoring game, I actually managed to finish a game with 10 people at the inn, and it felt really good. I had done something. It wasn't just I moved the cards in the right way and it happened. Yes, there's a little bit of luck as to what comes out of the deck, but that's true with any card game when you're turning over and things are affected by other cards. That's not going to change in a game with only 18 cards. There's always going to be some luck about what's coming out of the deck. But beyond that, there really is some strategy here. There really is quite a bit of thought that needs to be put into what you're selecting and how you're selecting it to do well in this game. But at the same time, the setup is shuffle a deck of cards and put out 4 cards. The rules are move somebody to the inn, check conditions. Add someone to the bar, check conditions. That's it. I just explained the game to you in less than a minute. But just with knowing how to play the game is not going to make this a game that you can do well at. And that makes you keep coming back more and more to try more and more. And again, the more I play this, the more I enjoy this. And I definitely strongly recommend that you check out the Kickstarter campaign that's running right now. You can pick up the game and 1 free expansion for just $10. It's worth it. And I recommend jump in and get the other expansion. And if you haven't gotten Food Chain Island, I strongly recommend that one as well. Again, I'm going to do a full review later, but there is that preview that I put up before. That's a great game as well, and they're offering that in the Kickstarters too. So if you haven't gotten that, go pick them up as a bundle. This is a great game. I can't say it's going to be for everybody, but it's definitely for me, and I think you're going to like it if you check it out. So head over to Kickstarter, check out that page, and if you like it, grab a copy. While I am here, I should mention the expansions that I did talk about. There are 2 expansions. The first one is included as part of the Kickstarter, and that's just going to add 3 new patrons that are coming to the inn or the bar. I don't really know much about them right now, but I do know that they're going to make things a little bit trickier and a little bit more advanced. And also, you're just going to add them into the deck, and it's going to make your scoring condition mean you need to have 8 or more in the inn at the end to win, not 7. So it's going to make things a little bit trickier and add another layer of things to the game, but not change the way the game plays at all. And the other expansion is Dragons. And the dragons are basically, you're going to add one of the 3 dragons to the game, and they're going to have something that irks them specifically. I don't know exactly what it is yet. I haven't looked too deeply into it. But basically, the dragons are going to be irked, and if the dragon is irked to the level that it needs to be, that instantly ends the game. So that's adding a complete new level to the game. That's going to add another challenge and add another sort of tricky level to the game. So if you do want more challenge or you do want more variety, I would definitely recommend checking out the expansion as well. So with all that being said, I can't force you to love this game, but I can definitely push you to go check out the campaign. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please like and subscribe below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.